Welcome back to Successful Gourmet. Today we're making sticky Thai chicken wings. To start this dish, we need a marinade for our chicken. So I have 4 cloves of garlic that I'm just chopping up into a nice fine mince. Once we have that minced up, we can transfer this over to a bowl and then add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar and a half cup of soy sauce. We're also going to need 1 tablespoon of lime. So I'm just rolling my lime to release those juices inside, and then cutting off the ends and cutting this in half before I squeeze it through my little press. If you're squeezing it through a press, definitely cut off that end as well as the middle because it's going to allow as much of that juice to be released as possible. This is a pretty juicy lime, so I think I'm only going to need the one, and I'll reserve that other lime for our sticky Thai glaze that we're going to make later. Now we're going to mix this all up just until all the sugar is dissolved. Give it a little taste because you want to know what your marinade tastes like. You want to know what that main flavor in your chicken is going to be. So I put 3 pounds of chicken wings, split chicken wings, into a Ziploc bag, and we're just pouring our marinade straight over all of our chicken. We're going to seal this up, squeezing as much of that air out of the Ziploc bag as possible. And we're just going to let this marinate in the fridge overnight. But I like to store it in a vessel that's large enough to hold the whole bag just in case there's any leakage. You don't want any contamination in your fridge. So over the next 24 hours, just go in and flip that bag a couple of times just to ensure that that marinade gets love on all sides of your chicken. So it is the next day. As my little pop-up says, I'm preheating the oven to 400 degrees, and now we're just going to line up all of our chicken wings onto a parchment-lined baking sheet, or you can use a baking rack over a baking sheet. I just like the parchment. It just makes my life easier when I go to clean. And we are going to line these up, leaving a little space in between. And we're going to bake them at 400 degrees for 25 minutes. Don't worry, they're going to bake longer than that, but for the first half, we're going to bake them on this side for 25 minutes. So while these are baking, we're going to start on our sticky marinade. So I have 3/4 cup of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of sriracha. Could not decide what I wanted to do next there. And then also 1 tablespoon of Thai curry paste and half a cup of sweet Thai chili sauce, which you can find in the Asian section of your grocery store or in your Asian market if you have one close by. We're also going to need a half of a cup of honey. I know this seems like a lot of sweet on top of sweet, but you have to remember we have the curry paste in there as well as the soy sauce. So you're going to get that sweet, sour, savory flavor that Thai food is so incredibly well known for. So now I have that lime from yesterday that we're just going to go ahead and juice right into our pan. Because again, you need that sour note as well in Thai cooking. And last but not least, we need about a tablespoon of ginger. You can grate yours with a microplane. I like ginger, so I'm adding a little bit more than is called for, but some people may not. But you definitely need some of the ginger in there. I'm just chopping this with my knife manually into a nice fine mince, and I'm going to add this to our marinade as well. I could not find my bench scraper, that's why I very foolishly used my knife. Regardless, I digress. So over medium heat, we are going to bring our little marinade up to a boil and then lower our heat to medium low and let this simmer for 10 minutes. But you do want to come back and stir because there's so much sugar in this glaze. I keep calling it a marinade, my apologies. You don't want the bottom to burn. So after this is thickened up, we're going to take it off the stove and let it cool down and just start working on some garnish. I have some cilantro here that I'm just pulling off the leaves, and I'm just storing this in ice water just to keep it as vibrant and fresh as possible. Before we go to garnish, I will dry off the herbs and chop them up. I also have a jungle's worth of Thai basil growing in my arrow garden, which I love. It's super peppery. Next up, I have 2 scallions that I'm also going to chop. I do want to submerge this in cold water as well, but to make it easier for myself, I'm going to use a little strainer and just dump those little guys into the strainer to make it easier to retrieve later. Now after 25 minutes, we're going to take out our chicken and start flipping these so the other side can get a little love as well. This goes back in the oven for another 25 minutes. After 25 minutes, now we get to glaze. So using a pastry brush, I'm just going in and brushing as much or as little of that glaze as you'd like. We are going to serve this on the side as well. I just like to really cover as much surface area as possible. At this point, you want to raise the temperature of your oven to 450 because you want this glaze to caramelize and get slightly crispy in the oven. Being a little OCD, making sure everything is coated, and then I'm flipping all of my chicken because I want the entire surface area to be coated. Then we're going to bake this in the oven at 450 for another 5 to 10 minutes. Just keep an eye on it because you don't want it to get burnt. Okay, now let's plate these. I have to be honest with you, if I were not filming this, I would not even bother with a plate. I would eat these straight off of the sheet pan. But since we are filming, we're trying to be a little fancy. So I'm just gonna put as many chicken wings as I think I can eat onto a plate. Any of that leftover glaze, put in a side dish because you definitely want to dip this. So now we're just gonna garnish with a little chopped peanut, as well as, well, I guess we're going with scallion next. And last but not least, our cilantro and basil, which I paper towel dried and then chopped up. This looks absolutely beautiful. Now let's give these a taste. The wings are tender and moist and succulent. You get the sweet, sour, spicy, salty from the glaze. These are just really, really delicious. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna just put my elbows on the table, sorry mom, and eat the rest of that plate. But there it is. Sticky Thai chicken wings. I hope you guys try to make them. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a like. If you loved it, subscribe and hit the notification bell because I put out new videos every Thursday. Till next time, happy cooking.